here and moving. He's going to live with them for the right now until he kind of gets situated. He's finished school to be a repair technician for hospital equipment. I mean, everything from ventilators down to the smallest amount of equipment they have. And so he's going to work for one of the hospitals here in town. Also, I thought I would announce to you that on Monday nights, I have for those of you who don't know, I have a Zoom meeting with the Dominican Republic and the people in Mexico, Brownsville, Brother Hugo Rodriguez, and some of the Mexico churches. And so there's several, I don't know, we may have 80 or 90 on there last week, but I'm going to open that up for all of y'all that would like to watch it. We record it also, so if you can't get in on the live Zoom meeting, you can get the recording and watch it at your leisure. I've sent a few people, some of the brothers, the elders, the recording, but for you to watch it, you'll need the Zoom app. And I don't know how that works because I've sent it to people that didn't have it and it opened up. So I guess it may, I don't know if it installs the Zoom app for you or not. But anyway, you can go on your phone and just look up Zoom, Z-O-O-M. And if you have that app, when you, I can give you all, in fact, I'll give it to you right now. I'll give you the ID that you can get on. It's always the same ID. And you can get on the Zoom meeting. And you can put it in your phone, wherever you want to put it, where you'll have it. The Zoom ID is 462-780-9399. And there is no password. I took the password off. Yeah, it is 462-780-9399. When you get on there, of course, let me just tell you this. If you don't know, you can get on with your video on or off. So if you get on with your video on, you need to be dressed and presentable. And also when you get on, your microphone will be on. So if you and your husband are arguing, you need to hush. I mean, Brother and Sister Durham got on there last week talking to one another and showing pictures of their ceiling and all around. I said, hey, Durhams, you are on live on this Zoom meeting, and we can't hear you. They weren't arguing, thank the Lord.
We were trying to figure out how to use it, and for about 10 minutes, there was a picture of our ceiling because we laid the phone down and the video camera was pointing straight up, and people was probably wondering, why are they showing a picture of their ceiling for all that time?
Yeah.
It's a nice ceiling.
So he's just now getting to see his grandkids. They came to our house last night and spent the night. They got in late. So, but anyway, now let me say something about that meeting. You can turn your video off, and the host can turn your microphone off if sometimes if kids are in the background or people talking in the background, they don't realize it. Everybody's hearing them. So if that happens, well, because the person that talks will light up on the screen, we'll know who's talking. Of course, since I'm hosting the meeting, I'm generally the one talking, but Emilio Green is doing the interpreting in Spanish. So I will and that meeting starts at 6 o'clock in the evening on Monday evening. The reason for that, it's 8 o'clock in the Dominican Republic. And that meeting generally lasts anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'll stop generally at 9 o'clock their time and in an hour and ask them if they'd like for me to stop, but they want me to keep going. And I was talking on last week, there were several questions that were asked, and I was talking, most of the talk in the latter part of it, at least the last hour, was on the 7 vials in the book of Revelation. That's what they write in questions. I'll give you all just a little bit here of what they wrote in. Uh-huh. We're live streaming on YouTube.
On our YouTube channel, the church.
Okay, is that under under First Gospel Church?
Yes, sir, and I posted a link on Facebook.
Okay. So,
I'll text you, but it's,
okay, good. One of the questions was, I'd like to hear Brother Smith on what he thinks about the election and how it ties into our church. Well, he's talking about the body of Christ, of course. And of course, my answer is that, in 1 Kings, God, the Lord, removeth kings and sets up kings. And so, that was preached so hard when I first came in the body. I have never one time voted for anything since I've been in this body. It's not so much that I'm against it, but I just realize that who gets in office, God's going to put them in office, and he may put it in the people's mind to do it. So you may feel like you're helping God out. I've always wondered if I knew who he was voting for, I'd say I'd vote for. But since I didn't want to vote against him. But again, I'm not really, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I'd have been against it, but I'm not really against it today so much because, I realize God uses people. And of course, this election was it was such an intense election. And, I don't know that it'll ever be proven, but I certainly do believe that there's something rotten in Denmark. Have you ever heard that? I mean, for hundreds of thousands or even millions of votes being for one guy that's being mailed in, it just doesn't make sense. That they, when there's at least 50-50 or on all the votes is done by person, and all the mail-in votes comes in, and they're all basically for one guy. There's something don't sound right about that to me. But regardless, God's going to put in who he wants in, and I'm certain, God may not care about some of these little bitty countries, but I think he cares about these big countries that rule the world. I'm gonna say something to you here in a minute that's gonna kind of maybe shake you just a little bit. It's bothering me. Anyway, I certainly do believe that God is in control, and I certainly know that anything as big as this pandemic, that God is definitely in it. If he didn't cause it to happen, he definitely is using it. And I wouldn't say that he didn't cause it to happen. It's just something we absolutely don't know. But I certainly believe that God's getting this world ready for judgment, and he's getting it ready for some of the big changes that's going to take place in the near future. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen this week. We'll see if the Democrats control the Senate. I'm just praying that don't happen. I'm hoping the Lord don't do that. But God sets up wicked kings many times because of wicked people in a nation. And, you know, when Jesus came to this world, he said that Sodom and Gomorrah would rise in judgment against this nation. He was just showing that this nation is wicked. I don't know if they're as wicked as Sodom and Gomorrah, but the wickedness was so strong that the judgment that hit Sodom and Gomorrah was fitting for that generation that Jesus was talking to. And I know that America, we're in trouble in America. This nation's forgot God. And so I know that God will judge this nation, and this nation will go down, I believe. One of the things that I'm going to tell y'all that I said might be a little bit of shaking to you. I may be fixing to change on a teaching that we've taught for some time. And that is that the United States is the seventh head. I may have to change on that. There's some things in the book of Revelation that's bothering me about it, and I'll tell you what they are. I'm just telling you, I'm not telling you I've made the complete change yet. I'm just telling you that I'm considering it, and I'm sort of telling you so that if I make the change, you won't, in other words, I'm not going to throw my hat in the door and y'all throw it back at me when I get here in the morning. Let me tell you why I'm considering it. Revelation's the 13th chapter. This in the first verse. I've held, and all the brotherhood in this body know I've held to Brother Leniger's thinking on Revelation on the United States being the seventh head. I'll still leave them United States where we've always put it. I may be just changing its position a little bit. Here's why. Let's see here. Let me 13th chapter of Revelation's in the first verse. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. John saw 7 heads come up out of the sea. America came up out of the earth. There were 7 heads that came up out of the sea. That's been haunting me for some time. In the 7th chapter of the book of Daniel, in the 2nd chapter, where Belshazzar saw the image of the man, there was by the way, this has took me so long to write this book that I'm writing on the book of Revelation. I'm actually putting it in audible form, which I'm about there on that. The one thing that's held me up the most than anything else is the letter to the 7 churches, because those letters to those 7 churches weren't to you and I, and it does not include the ages of the Gentile people. It were literal 7 churches. You can apply it if you want to, but you can't interpret it of being anything but those 7 churches back there. And that doesn't apply to the Gentile world. That was the very first thing that God was doing back there. That was what was at hand and what shortly must come to pass. the judgment upon the end of the Jewish world, and that was falling on those 7 churches. In fact, all of the churches in the body that were in Asia, but those 7 churches were they were, I would say, the most pronounced or leading churches among the Gentiles, and there were many, many Jews in those churches that had fled there from the things that had taken place in Israel. And but it went out. Not only did one letter go to them, they read all 7 letters. All the churches that they had connection with throughout Asia all got not only the 7 letters, but they got the whole revelation. They got the whole deal. And but so that's been a holdup for me, trying to utilize those 7 letters in application for us, but really explaining what took place back there. Now, getting back to this 2nd chapter of Daniel and the image. If you'll notice in this image, there's the head of gold. There's the arms and shoulders of silver. Then there's brass. This is Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. 2 legs of iron, which is Rome. Egypt, Assyria came before them. In Daniel, and then after that is the feet members of iron and clay, including the 10 toes. Then in the 7th chapter, Daniel sees and is able to interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which starts off with 4 beasts. Those 4 beasts are, of course, it happens. It starts, the dream starts off in the time of Babylon. So it's the head of gold is Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. Then Medo-Persia, the bear. Then the leopard, Greece. And then a terrible beast. He didn't know what it was. He just called it a terrible beast. And there were 2 heads before the Egypt and Assyria, of course, and that makes 6 heads. But then there is a little 2-horned beast. We may have to include that 2-horned beast as being Rome. It's different from the terrible beast. And so it still doesn't do away with the fact that there is a beast rising up out of the earth. The only change I'm having to consider, to be honest with the Scriptures, I don't know why I never saw this before. A lot of times you just believe what you're told, and you have to begin to look and really be honest. And I'm trying to be honest with everything I can in trying to project what I know about this book. And so a lot of things I'm saying, here's what some brethren believe, here's what's been projected, here's another thought that's been projected. I'm giving it all. I'm not trying to say I'm right, nobody else is right. I think to be fair with our position, we've got to let people know there's other positions and why our position is what it is. And the Lord hadn't let me finish this book, and it just seems like I keep coming up with adjustments. There's just new things that God's revealing. The more I talk on it, the more new revelation I get. But this is something that's been bothering me for a while, but I haven't told nobody because this is hard. This is hard for me to change on. But I'm having to at least consider it. So, if any of you brethren can say, "Whoa, Brother Smith, be careful here. Let me show you why you can't consider that." Well, then please help me, because I'm definitely at the place of having to consider it. Then when you get down into the feet members of iron and clay, the 2-horned beast in Revelations 13, if you want to go there, It's in the, I think it's in the 11th verse where that starts. And it says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed." Now that has to be Rome, and that has to be the little two-horned beast in Daniel 7. And so this beast coming up out of the earth, it spake as a dragon, but it doesn't look like it was one of the seven heads that came up out of the sea. Because if you go to the 17th chapter of the book of Revelations, and verse 9, it said, "Here is the mind of them that hath wisdom." There's the seven heads are seven mountains which the woman sitteth, and there are seven kings. Five are fallen, one is, and another's not yet come. See, one was pagan Rome. The one that hadn't come yet was Catholicism, the papacy. "And when he cometh, he'll continue a short space." There's where I'm hung up a little bit, because I still believe that's America. So, seven kings, five are fallen, one is, and one's not yet come. When he cometh, he'll continue a short space. That cannot be Rome. Unless you want to make the short space the papacy, which was from 538, is 1260 years. That's not such a short space. Anyway, so there's a hang-up right there. That's one of the reasons I hadn't changed, maybe. And the 10 kings, verse 11. "And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seventh in perdition, and goeth into perdition." So then your 10 horns, your 10 kings come in. So there'd have to be some adjustment right there, but I also have the hang-up of there being 7 heads and 10 horns. A beast that came up out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. So there is a little bit of a problem that I'm looking at. Anyway, I'm still studying on it, but I'm just telling you ahead of time in case I do make a complete change on it, that you'll know why. I'll explain more into it than what I've said right here. Anyway, so that was one of the questions about the election. Let me see if there's another question that I want to mention to you. Oh, it's the 10. They're just asking the 10, because I had made a statement the week before that America would have to go down for 10 kings to come in power. Let me go back a little bit to the feet members in Daniel 2, where you have iron and clay. When this beast that come up out of the earth, and I hope everybody understands what I'm saying about the earth there. The reason it didn't come up out of the sea and it came up out of the earth is higher than the sea. Sea level's as flat as you can get. The earth is a rise up out of the sea, and that pertains to religion and in prophecy. But if you go to the 7th chapter of the book of Revelations, in the first verse, and of course, this is the 6th seal in the book of Revelations, and I think we're in the 6th seal right now. We're in the 6th seal. We're in what the 6th seal is explaining, and we're also in the 7th seal. Now, if that's confusion to you, you got to get it this way. Each seal is just a piece of information, and it's like a synopsis or a summary form or an index to the book of Revelation. That's what the first 6 seals are. They are an index or synoptic piece of information that is like, here's an overview, here's just a little piece of information that what the book of Revelation is about. And they're coming to chronological order. First 6 seals. The 7th seal is the book, detailed form from chapter 8, all the way through the end of the book. You can never show me where a seal ever shuts until another seal opens. And the 7th seal opens in the 8th chapter, and it never closes until the book's over. That seal gives you all that information from chapter 8 through chapter 22. And so we're somewhere in the 7th seal, because everything that's in the first 6 seals are in the 7 seals. It's in the detail. But the 6th seal is specifically talking about the end of the Gentile world, and goes all the way through the 1,000 years to the culmination of everything, including everlasting life. That ends in the 7th chapter. The 6th and 7th chapter, the last part of the 6th and 7th chapter does that. So, we're in the 6 seals, what he's talking about right here in Revelations 7. And verse 1, let's just read a couple verses here. It says, "After these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth." Earth. Note that word earth right there. In fact, let me highlight it since I don't have it highlighted. Not to hurt the earth or the sea, saying, "Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we've sealed the servants of our gods in their foreheads." And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000, and 12,000 in each tribe. He goes on. My point here about the earth and the sea, the earth, it's religion. The sea is humanity. The sea's the world. And these 7 beasts rose up out of the sea. They rose up out of humanity. They had nothing to do with religion. They were civil powers in the world. First Egypt, then Assyria, then Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and pagan Rome. And even papal Rome rose up out of pagan Rome. It still was Rome. If we're going to make that a 7th head, we'll just have to see. We can't do away with the earth, the beast that rose up out of the earth. And what I've explained about the earth is this, is that since it's religion, and since this beast came up out of the earth, it was different than the other heads that came up out of the sea, out of the world. It came up out of religion, and I'm saying the United States is the culmination of what he's the term earth here. In other words, religion, I would say the earth started with the Reformation, with the reformers that God began to speak to. The Catholicism was a pale horse, and the rider on it was death. There was no life in that. There was no anointing. God wasn't in that to bring life. He brought out of that reformers that began to have God's Spirit and anointing with them, working with them. And that was the earth. That was religion. That was the religion of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That Reformation worked, and it finally, God brought out of that our forefathers to America to establish a land where there was freedom of religion and that God could restore his church in. That's when finally in 1914, when God gave William Souders a revelation of the body of Jesus Christ, what the body was. That's the first preaching of it. that had any significance in the Gentile world. And that's what I'm saying the earth is. Here, this beast that rose up out of the earth was a culmination of the Reformation that finally was established in the United States of America. And the United States of America, I still believe, is going to be the nation that will make an image to the beast. So when you get down into the feet members of Daniel 2 of the iron and clay, the clay is religion. Clay is Protestantism. And iron is Catholicism. And when America mates the image to the beast and joins up with the beast, gives it its power and stands with it, they are conjoined or together in the feet members of iron and clay. And it will remain that way even into the 10 kings. And that's why I say America will give its power to the beast or the papacy. He'll become the 8th, and he's of the 7. See,
America's not number 7. What number is she?
she's not part of that 7. If we have to make an adjustment on that, she can't be part of that 7. She's just a dragon power that makes an image to the beast and puts in with the beast, and it is Protestantism mixed then with Catholicism, which won't mix. It will never stick, but it will stay in power through the 10 kings until it destroys the iron. It will destroy the beast system. It'll destroy Babylon. Or, that's what Armageddon's going to do in the end. So, like if somebody wanted to argue with me about it, I would have to say, explain to me how these 7 heads came up out of the sea, are part of the beast that came out of the sea, yet this beast in Revelations 13 came up out of the earth. Explain, help me understand that. There's where I'm got a hang up, see? So I would have to say this beast ain't part of the 7. But it is a dragon power, at least long enough to make the image to the beast and give its power, which becomes the 8th head. So it won't rule the whole world, so to speak, as far as not the way the other 7 heads have done it, and neither the way that the 8th head's going to do it. America's definitely been the superpower of the world, but we can't say. Remember what Brother Lerner used to teach us? He used to say, until the United States taxes the whole world, you can't say it's a head of the beast. You can't say it's a dragon. Well, yeah, go ahead.
There was one nation that's not listed that the sun never set on its empire, and it did tax the whole world. That's why we broke off from them, and that was Great Britain. Colonies all over the world, we broke off of them because they were taxing us. But it took until the 1960s till finally the empire finally broke up. Yeah, they taxed all their colonies. The sun never ever set on the British Empire, and they taxed their people heavily. They didn't tax the whole world, yes, but all their colonies they did.
Yeah, but it didn't tax the whole world. See, the world, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, they absolutely controlled everything in the known world during their time.
Their world wasn't very big.
Well, it's big enough that they controlled the whole thing, during their time. They were still in control. Uh-huh.
A tool to implement the power that needs to be done.
I'm saying actually that the United States will be a dragon power. It's just not one of the 7 heads that's talked about in Revelations 13. I'm still looking at the Revelation 17. this short space that continued. We've always, and that was Brother Langer that brought that out, that the United States lived a short space only. But it's one of the 7, according to Revelation 17. So we'd have to change on that short space and who that was if we make a change on it. I'm just saying, I'm just being honest with y'all and letting you know that I've run into a problem in making this beast that rose up out of the earth being a part of the beast that rose up out of the sea that had 7 heads and 10 horns. So I'm considering that, yes, the United States is going to make the image to the beast. It is going to speak as a dragon. It's going to come into power enough to make the image and give its power to the beast. And that beast will be the 8th, which is of the 7, which would be true in the evolving of those 7 and it getting back in power, because it's the beast that was and is not and yet is. And it will come back into power.
One time, this body, or at least a portion of it, taught that the Catholicism was a 2-part beast. The seven was down through the 5, and then.
No, we taught that Rome was a 2-part, pagan and
Right.
papal,
Correct.
not
But-
just Catholicism. Yeah.
But they taught that those were they were 2 different heads, though.
Yeah, and I am saying that if we change, that's what we'd have to change back to. And the strength that you can get out of that is that in Daniel 7, the 4 beasts is Egypt and Assyria is already passed. Starts with Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome.
Pagan Rome.
Well, Rome is a terrible beast in that chapter, in that dream. Then there is a 2-horned beast, a little 2-horned beast that comes and plucks up 3 of the heads. That's a different beast than that terrible beast. Well, you can make a strong argument with that, which would make that the 7th head, and that would have to be the papacy.
Brother Smith,
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question that I actually was going to ask you this before you brought this up, and it goes along with your statement there of continuing for a short space being could that possibly be the 1260 years? In Revelations 22, Jesus said, was telling John, he said, "Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to every man according to his work." And he says that 3 times during this chapter. My question was, he said, "I'm coming quickly," but this would have to be down here. So
No, that's talking about back there.
how,
See,
how could that be?
he's already gave, listen to me for a moment. He's already gave the future of the work down through the 20th chapter, the final white throne judgment and everything. The 21st and 22nd chapter, he goes back to talking to John, explaining to him what heaven is like. But he tells them, he goes on and tells them whoever's a whoremonger, let him be. Let whoever's, here's, blessed are they that do his commandments, they that have right to the tree of life, who may enter through the gates into the city, for without are dogs and swords. There ain't nobody without after Revelations 20 and the final judgment, and everything gets thrown into the lake of fire. He's just going back here, showing John, okay, now I've done showed you this, and here's what heaven's like, but here's what it's like today, and everything's going to be judged just like I've told you. But he's not talking about this quickly right here. He's talking about back there, AD 70, coming upon them quickly. You see what I'm saying?
Written before the
AD 70.
AD 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's my position on the date of writing. I just can't find nothing in history anywhere that you'd think that there would be something that was so emphatic that God had Jesus write 7 absolute letters to 7 churches in Asia to warn them and give them just a little bit of time left to overcome sin. I don't think there was any light to overcome anything in AD 95.
So,
The church had fell away.
Brother Smith, was that a coming of the Lord when Jerusalem or Israel was destroyed? Because
He came in final judgment. Final judgment. In other words, AD 70 finalized the judgment and put Israel out. And the gospel went to the Gentiles. God was finishing up his harvest in the end of that Jewish world. And then God started all over with a new people in the Gentiles. And he laid enough foundation for it that he could see to it that it would not go away. You know, he would be able to finish it in the Gentile world, but it'd have to go back to a very primitive condition of darkness. It had to go back to a red horse, a black horse, and finally into a pale horse before out of that God could begin to start the Reformation. That's what I'm saying about the earth. I mean, if somebody's got something better on the earth, I want to hear it, but I think I've got a good explanation that's very reasonable about this beast coming up out of the earth. And in the 7th chapter where it says, hurt not the earth or the sea. God has people out in the sea that's backslid. Some of them are victims. Some of them just gave up. Some of them starved to death. Some of them just backslid. You know, some have got exalted and went out into the world and didn't think they had to stay with the body. God's got people out into the sea that are they're ungodly sinners. They're not ungodly. I mean, they are ungodly, but they're sinners because they know God. But the ungodly don't have nothing to do with God. You know, they've never known God. But these people are living like the ungodly out in the world. That's in the sea. But God is not going to judge those people until he brings them out of the sea. He wouldn't let them hurt anybody in the sea. Don't hurt the earth, the sea, or any green tree. That's God's children. I'm not going to let destruction come upon anybody until I manifest myself in the end of the Gentile world and bring about the Reformation to a full restored church so that I can make up the remainder of my bride and finish the work down through the 1,000 years. I really appreciate everybody's questions. I don't know if I answered your question, Sister Holly, completely, but I'm saying that if I haven't fully made this change, I'm just still got it in question, but I'm far enough in it that I don't want to just spring it on you. So I'm at least giving you my thoughts on why I'm considering a change. Yeah. How will this change affect us? It won't affect us any. All we're doing is making an adjustment. Whether we make the United States one of the 7 heads or we still make it a dragon power that sets up the head, I still believe the United States is definitely the nation that is going to make an image to the beast. And this adjustment, if I make a change on this adjustment may help the brethren because they've never been able to accept the United States. But, you know, I've talked to some of them. Most all of them believe that this head here is a civil and ecclesiastical power. They're, you know, they don't know who it is.
That would make it not out of the sea.
Right. Make it not out of the sea and have them to understand that this isn't part of the 7 heads that has ruled the world with as a beast. You know, these beasts are civil powers. The dragon, you know, the dragon is it's conjoined with not only civil but also religious. So when it always becomes a dragon always gets joined up with a religious power to control the world. You can't control these people without religion. You just can't do it.
Not a dragon until it's joined with religion.
Right. Yeah, the dragon that rose up against Christ wasn't just a civil power. It was Judaism and Rome that rose up against Christ. That Rome fueled it with its power. But religion's the one that was actually the one that was anti-Christ. It came out against Christ.
Brother Smith,
Mm-hmm.
the feet, this was interesting, your comment on the feet being clay and iron, and the iron being Rome, or the Catholic Church. So are the 10 toes iron, or are they clay?
They're iron and clay. You read the second chapter, the iron and clay remains the same in the feet members, even into the toes. So, see, the 10 kings are going to give their power to the beast for 1 hour. It's probably more or less, maybe more accurate might be a half hour. But it's during that hour. It's just like Babylon's going to get judged, but it's going to be it's going to be in the last half hour, more than it would be in the whole hour. But in 1 hour, her judgment comes. It's in that last prophetical hour that's going to take place. And again, I've always said that for right now, I see the 10 kings being more than likely the United Nations. Now, I don't say that it couldn't change, because we don't know what God's going to do. We don't know what's going to rise up in government yet before this thing's over with. But the only thing I can see right now that could bring any stabilization, to stabilize the world in its condition, the only thing I can see that could do that would be the United Nations. And the United Nations, the 10 is the number of judgment in the Bible. And so I'm just saying the judgment seat of the United Nations, when America goes down, which I'm certain America will go down, that is the earthquake in the 6th chapter of the book of Revelations, and the 6th seal. It's the earthquake in the 11th chapter of the book of Revelations. It's the second woe. That's the second woe when America goes down. And so when America goes down, the only thing that I see that could bring some stabilization to the world and its condition at that time, because it is going to shake this world when this nation goes down. But it will. God will judge this nation. Every nation that forgets God will be turned into hell. This nation's going to be judged. There's no question in my mind about that. For 10 kings to come in power, something will have to happen. America's too great and too strong in America. Now, I don't mean that it won't be destroyed, but its military will be devastated. I think there will be major damage done to the major military bases, the data keeping systems, the economical systems of America. America will be devastated far more than Russia ever was when Russia went down. And then 10 kings will come into power to try to bring some sort of stabilization to the world and try to hold things intact. Those 10 kings will be in power, if it's the United Nations or whatever it is that God sets up. The only thing I can see at this point is the United Nations. That's why I'm saying it very well could be that. But then the 10 kings they'll give their power to the beast for 1 hour, but finally they will hate her and eat her flesh. They'll destroy her. That'll happen in the Battle of Armageddon, or it's what will bring the Battle of Armageddon about. That's in your 7 vials. So anyway, and now you know the rest of the story. All right, we'll take a break. See you upstairs.